Maggie, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, you've got quite the bio, and we're actually going to spend some time on that. But in the kind of broad strokes, who are you? What do you do?
I'm Maggie Campbell. I'm the CEO of American Cane. I've been in the rum industry for, oh my goodness, 12, 13 years now, maybe 14. But I originally got my start with a passion for rye whiskey, worked at Germain Robin, a fifth generation cognac family, distilling wine and creating spirits in California, and then found my way into the rum industry.
Fantastic. Well, you share that, I guess, Germain Robin DNA with another one of our recent guests, Nancy
Nancy,
Fraley.
I love
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
We recently had a fantastic conversation about blending and all that entails. Her sweet spot. So I guess aside from having a background in wine, which we may kind of dip into during this conversation since it's so fresh on your mind, what are the important inflection points in your career development from person who, as I understand it, studied philosophy to somebody who is now the CEO of a very ambitious rum project? What are some of the important inflection points along the way?
I would say, oddly enough, working in a spice house when I was in college was hugely important. When you were learning the difference between, Sri Lankan or Zanzibar cloves and why you would use which one in place of the other, and, different types of vanilla beans and why you would use them in different dishes. And, working with a lot of personal chefs who would come in to buy their spices bespoke from us. There's a world of paprikas out there. They're not just for coloring on deviled eggs, guys. Uh, so it taught me a lot about the subtlety of flavor, the structure of flavor, how you would build flavor, and I think that was the start of my blending journey, which then, of course, got accentuated by wine. Essentially, the economic crash of yesteryear happened when I graduated college. And I went into wine and learned a lot about the art of blending, how fermentation works, how to create aromas and esters, how to, do a really great fermentation with the proper nutrients, so that when the consumer tastes it, like you can literally taste a nutrient deficiency. I know we talked about that when we were spirits judges together previously. So learning all of those really important steps that just sort of culminated in ending up in spirits. And there are a few key people there. Todd Leopold is someone I really got to know right as they were moving their distillery from Michigan to Colorado, so long time ago. Um, and he was really the one who came to me and said, Siebel is just offering for the first time ever distillation technology courses. You can get a little piece of paper that says this 23-year-old knows what she's doing. And it helped my career a lot. And just, yeah, certain moments of encouragement and support. Hubert Germain Robin, he was really the one who pushed me into rum. I'd never considered rum. And he really didn't want me to leave the spirits industry, which I almost did because my experience in wine is really great and it informs my distillation knowledge. But also, I've had opportunities there in the past, and he really encouraged me to stay in spirits and got me on the rum track, and it really did change the course of my life.
What's the difference qualitatively between pursuing a path in the wine industry versus one in the spirits industry? Because I think most people who hear you say that would be like, well, that's not even apples and oranges. That's like Macintoshes and Granny Smiths. So, I mean, yeah, one might taste a little different, but like, what is the qualitative difference there? What would that have looked like? And I guess, what's that alternate reality that you're referencing off the page?
Yeah, I mean, I keep a notebook with all my wild ideas, and there was definitely a period of time where I was really passionate about the history of Mexican American winemakers. If you know the famous tasting of Paris, the big blind wine tasting, where for the first time ever California wines beat French wines, that winemaker was a Mexican American. And
Oh,
when we talk about, the history of California wine obviously starts with enslaved indigenous people at missions. Indigenous Americans are America's first winemakers. And then it really goes towards with prohibition and, just the fact that California was part of Mexico. Uh, there's this whole overlap of that tradition of grape growing and winemaking and brandy making in Mexico being really influential in California, as well as, during Prohibition, losing skilled labor, people becoming disconnected from that production path. And then, a lot of Mexican and Mexican Americans and Chicano folks being the people to really revive the wine industry here in the US. So I had like a whole thing where I was going to have like a portfolio of all, Mexican American winemakers. That was like one idea I had when I was like 23 or 4. Then it was like, I'd flip back to the spirits industry. Like, oh no, it's 2008 and no one is laying down rye whiskey. Why isn't anyone laying down rye whiskey? If I had 10-year-old American made rye whiskey, that would be amazing because no one's really doing that. And I had like a real love of producing rye. There's a couple of production tricks that are really important for making rye that I really get passionate about and excited about, especially in the mashing process for preserving flavor, but also getting like what we call full conversion, meaning like getting the alcohol out without turning into a brick of cement, while also preserving all the flavors. Really important to me. And so, there's all these different things that kind of weaved in and out of each other as I just learned different stories and had new ideas. There's a while where I was really into Croatian wine. And I was like, oh man, no, like I need to be like a representative for Croatian wines in America. This was sort of before the big Slovenian wine movement.
Right,
People might
right.
recognize orange wines. This was like a precursor to that. So, anyways, I've had like a lot of imaginary mental journeys down that path. But I think that for me, there was so much opportunity in spirits at the time. Wine is a pretty compact field. There's a lot of professionals, a lot of, and that comes with a lot of bonuses, like the Geisenheim Research Center that publishes all this incredible research. Whereas in the spirits industry, it's usually funded by private corporations. We don't share as much. We're not as open, which is why I try to be as open as possible. There's like the Australian Wine Fair movement where they really share their techniques and practices. And if you look at the technical skill in Australian winemaking, it's incredible because of this. So
Hmm.
spirits doesn't have that as much, but it also like I could literally taste every gin on the American market back in 2009. You couldn't even taste every Chardonnay made in America, period, like hundreds and thousands, So it's sort of like there was an opportunity to be a real expert in the field. There was so much open opportunity at the time. I remember when one new craft spirits distillery would open and we would all call each other because it was like such news. And now it's like there's over 1,000. It's wild. Like I remember when there would be like, oh no, someone opened in Montana. Do you know them? Do you know them? Like, because there was hardly anyone. So it was a wide open opportunity and I had technical skills that were valuable. And so opportunity just kept presenting itself and I just kind of followed that.
Mm. Oh, so many things I want to comment on.
Yeah. Did that answer your question? I don't even know.
well, one, they all still sound like cool ideas, right? So
Who knows? Life is long.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the portfolio of Mexican American / indigenous winemakers is like, I don't know, sounds like a pretty fun little path to explore.
Yeah. That was like 15,
Yeah,
almost 20 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, perhaps a little too early for its time, even. But these
Mm.
days, Uh, so before we get too far down this road, what you were a philosophy person. Did you have any specializations while you were studying the philosophical arts and sciences?
Yeah. Oof. Oh, this is one of my favorites. So I don't know if you guys know Serge. He's a big bartender over in the UK. We send each other a lot of philosophy beams because we're philosophy students. He's Hungarian, which has that very rich history of mathematics and philosophy. So we like to joke with each other. So my university was very focused on, they were real specialists, obviously, in like Nietzsche and existentialism and I actually did a lot of work, which like wasn't my passion, but I ended up just through a wormhole doing a ton of work on Kant, things like that. But there's definitely like, I was never um, like much of a postmodernist person, but like that was like booming at the time. That was like the thing. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, just a large variety of it.
Sampled
There's so many.
widely.
I mean, Fenot is someone I'm very interested
Hmm.
in the last 5 years, this Martinique philosopher.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Apt,
this,
apt, right? Yeah.
yeah, he's a Black Caribbean philosopher, and his words could be taken in a lot of ways. It's really, he's fascinating and a brilliant thinker.
How do you spell that?
Um, Fannon, Fanon.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
And yeah, so I just feel like, there's so many out there that are amazing. And then, like, what is a philosopher versus, like, you know, a great teacher of humans? Like, there's all sorts of people that are maybe not classified as philosophers that I just really admire as some of the great teachers of humans. So, there's always that.
So now that we've got the groundwork, now that I feel like we've got a good sense of Maggie, a sense of how she got interested in wines and then transitioned to spirits and then doubled down on spirits when the time and the circumstances and the opportunities were correct. Um, let's talk specifically about rum.
Hmm.
Obviously, you are doing something very different now than you were when you first entered rum. So let's spend some time in that kind of entry period where you shifted your attention from the work that you were doing at places like Germain Robin to the rum world.
Yeah. When I got the call from Hubert Germain Robin, really saying, "Hey, I think you should do this rum project." I remember I was like sitting on a big pile of Kermit Lynch wines because I was part of selling that portfolio at the time, which, for folks who don't know, really into minimal intervention, ancestral and historic styles of wine. I bought wine. I bought Kermit Lynch wine at importer cost. Like, I was pretty like in a good spot. I remember getting this call from Hubert, and he was sort of like, I've met this person. They really want to do rum in a different way. Hubert knew that my passions were about minimal intervention. No artificial colors. Minimal, if any, filtering, which is very different than the cognac tradition. Obviously, there's things like, I'm sure Nancy may have discussed, like rancio, which is like sort of an artificial age flavoring, boisé, which is like a artificial oak flavoring, syrups, which is the term for sugar addition,
Mm-hmm.
and then like a lot of pretty heavy duty chill filtering, which is part of their tradition and their process, but like it didn't really like speak to my bones. So I was always kind of like most excited about some of the like, we do these single cask, totally unadulterated releases, like a 1989 single vineyard Viognier type thing. And that's always be what I was excited about. So he knew I was passionate about that. And obviously there's so many stereotypes in the rum world, especially in the US market, and especially 20 years ago, that really made me hesitate and be like, wait, will you see me working in rum? And he was like, you don't understand rum, clearly. And that was good. I needed to hear that. And it was actually this Hungarian sommelier, Zoltan, uh, who stopped me and was like, what are you talking about, Maggie? Like, you have studied spirits, you've worked in spirits. Why are you selling wine? Like, you better go do this. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it was really the person who intervened on my path to be like, what are you doing not using your, diploma? Go do this. Are you being wild? Go do it. So picked up my life and moved to New England and worked at Privateer. And it was great to get to know rum, build a relationship to rum, build a relationship to the rum community. It was really eye opening from my experience in cognacs and whiskeys. The first conference I went to, there were like multiple translators there because it's people from all different countries, all different communities. There's at the time, and perhaps still, there was a lot of infighting among American whiskey producers about this is the right way. And, when I would go to these conferences, folks would really respect and understand, like, oh, we come from totally different cultures. We come from different communities. Share what you do. I'll share what I do. Like, it wasn't trying to police each other, which obviously,
Mm,
like, as the Caribbean has emerged from colonialization, it's important not to police each other, not to, do these things. They've really worked, specifically, like especially like in Barbados, where they've stopped and said, we are our own republic, we are our own people, like built a new foundational government, built on principles that were not tied to the things that were really, unfairly, taking advantage and persecuting them. And so this whole idea of, you know, friends of all but satellites of none, and really, like, we don't police each other, like we respect each other. It's important that things are fair and appropriate, and like just really this idea of autonomy and excitement about each other was really, really cool, that I hadn't seen before. Caribbean is this whole diverse collection of really amazing communities. And in whiskey, like American whiskey, it's one country and often centered on two states. And then cognac is like a village, it's one village. So it was really cool for me to be like, oh yeah, no, everyone brings something, we all have our different styles, no one's telling each other they're wrong or you're doing it wrong or anything like that. It was very, very cool, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that it was sort of the rum family has really kept me in rum.
mm.
Because I've continued to have opportunities in wine, and particularly whiskey. When I left Privateer, I would say the vast majority of offers I got were in whiskey, my experience in whiskey. But it's Mount Gay. You go to Mount Gay when Mount Gay asks you to go to Mount Gay. So yeah, it's really kept me in the rum community. Just the people and the relationships and the community has been amazing.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to Mount Gay in just a second here, but
Yes.
I love the pluralism that you're talking about, right? Because to me, and I don't like making generalizations like this usually, but to me, rum really, really is the truly global spirit of our world.
Yeah. It's
The,
the it's
what do
the
you think?
ancestral spirit of the people of Earth. It is. It really is. It really is. And America. And the people of Earth. Yeah, it's truly amazing like that. Yeah.
Well, and I like it too because like when I think the first time I said that, I was like, wait a minute. Is that really true? If we compare it across different spirits categories, like gin, you can make gin anywhere. You can use the botanicals of that place. You can use all these different, fermentation substrates and distillate bases. Same goes for whiskey. You can any grain, right? Grain versus cane. You can do grains grow most places. Actually, grains grow more places than rum. So is whiskey more global than rum? It's like in all of the I guess expressions of spirits like gins and whiskeys, they really are they're of that place but due to constraints, whereas I find that in the rum world they're of that place because of more of a natural unfolding and more of like a historical, like, yes, it's a constraint, and yes, you're going to find that Martinique rum expresses itself in this way for these historical reasons, but it's the historical unfolding of things is just more natural and less forced, I find, than in other spirits categories. So I still, even though like I get really skeptical of big generalizations like rum
Yeah.
is the most global spirit, I'm like, every time I litmus test it and stress test it, it turns out to be true to me.
Yeah. And I'll meet someone from a really small island in Japan who goes, "Oh yeah, no, we have our own sugar. We ferment and we distill it." They don't call it rum, but these cane-based spirits are truly, especially when you look at, you go way back to the women of North Africa who kept distillation alive as alchemy changed through religious changes. Like you really see sugar just, and sugar cane in particular. And one of my whiskey friends, he made great whiskey distiller. Love this guy. Made his first batch of rum because the ownership of his new place really loved rum and they wanted him to make one. And he calls me up and he goes, "This doesn't seem right. I don't know what's going on." Da 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 da. He'd call me and I'd coach him through it. And he's like, you can't hide anything in rum. If I do something wrong, if I do anything, you taste it. And I think that sense of transparency, that communication of where it came from and how it was made. Like you said, Martinique has its own flavor. You go to the north coast of Haiti, it's going to be different than other parts of Haiti. Like it has this sense of transparency and teleportation that's pretty incredible and really unique. And this is some guy in Colorado, making a batch of rum, being like, you could taste everything in it, exactly where I sourced it from, how it was made. What do I do? And eventually, I was really kind of like, don't sweeten it. And he sweetened it because he was like, no, it's too exposing. It's like too much. And I was like, I think that, gave me some insight to the traditions of sweetening in rum. And, obviously different cultures and communities have different ideas. The Caribbean islands, rum is generally dry. And if it's sweet, it's a rum liqueur. But you see sometimes this sweetening happen. I was like, that's interesting that even he had that urge to distance himself a little bit from the spirit with some sweetening.
That is interesting. Ooh, this taps into a lot of stuff I've been thinking about recently, but we'll sidestep that and let's talk about Mount Gay. So you spent some time at Privateer. You were the distiller person, right? Whatever that, however the role and title works. You were the one running the show distillation wise at Privateer, and you get this big opportunity with Mount Gay. This is a rum brand that most people who listen to this show will be very familiar with. But take us through what that opportunity was, and I'd love to hear some of the highlights about your time spent in Barbados and how that kind of helped to advance the narrative that we're weaving here with your trajectory.
Yeah. I think I was very fortunate because it was Raphael Grizzoni, who was managing director at Mount Gay for a very long time. Hugely a big part of a lot of the major important changes happening there. And he knew me well. And I think that was important because when I started at Privateer, I was just, coming in as distiller and blender. And I was essentially like one of the only employees. And, we built it up. And as we built it up, I had experience. So obviously when I worked in wine, I worked in import, distribution, sales, which was something that Todd Leopold, talk about my trajectory, really encouraged me to do. He said, you can make rum and you can make whiskey and that's great. But the sales and distribution is the hardest part. I really encourage you to learn it. So I went and worked for a distributor for a year and a half in fine wine, and invaluable. Not the most exciting work. I went from running a still in the middle of the vineyards to schlepping boxes in a warehouse. But I learned so much that has absolutely been so key to my career. Because of that experience at Privateer, obviously we were really collaborative and I was involved in a lot of what market should we enter, which distributors should we work with. And that's how I worked my way up to vice president and then president. And it was actually Peter who ended up taking over sort of as managing distiller, along with the distiller Dylan there as well. And so lead distiller, managing distiller there. And so Raphael knew because we would talk about, we'd meet each other at Rumfest, et cetera. And he knew that product development, business model building, all of these things, strategic distribution was all stuff I was really passionate about. But obviously not very present publicly, not really on my social media because it's not the most exciting stuff. But he knew. And so I had left Privateer and I had basically hidden it on my Facebook timeline because I was just it was 2021 lockdown, crazy times. I was I'm just gonna hide this. And then I unhid it a month later, knowing it would be way down my timeline. No one would see it. Someone saw it a few weeks later. And that day it was wait, where's Maggie? What's going on? I got a first little, what are you up to? What are you doing? From a couple really amazing people, including Raphael, who was just interested in, what did I want to do next? So that blossomed over time. And I ended up, picking up our whole life and moving to the Caribbean, which was incredible. I will never be the same. And it was also challenging. It was really challenging too. And I learned so much, and it was great to work for a larger company that still, Remy Cointreau, the main group, is very family business. So it was really cool to see how a family owned business that was still very family interacted with a Caribbean company they owned, and they really respect Mount Gay and they really allow them to run their own business. I was really impressed with everyone at Mount Gay, like running the whole business, and the fact that Remy was like a good support and a positive force, and seeing how they do things, how do they look at things. But then also being able to bring like my innovation and what I worked on, and the concepts that I was really excited about there as well. And yeah, I mean, I undertook some massive projects there, helped to build a sugarcane mill, which was never part of the plan when I went there. But, we had like a team of 30 on work visas from India living at the distillery and building this like 4-story sugar mill for like 20 employees to work in. And like, I learned it was harder than any distillery I'd ever built by far. Like, unbelievable amount of systems and integration, and I became really passionate about sugar. I really understand on a way that is so hard if you aren't there, the pride and the passion so many Caribbean people have for sugar. Yes, it was born of colonialism, and there's such a sense of we made this, the world rallied around this. We created it. It's our skill, our knowledge, our technology. And it's true of rum as well. It's the skill, the technology, the science of the Caribbean people. And so, yeah, it was really incredible. One of my guys, he always said, sugar gets in your blood. And it totally did. I'm like, I'm so like, I'm like, oh no, if I won the lotto tomorrow, I would be like, let's invest in sugar. So it's really beautiful. It's an incredible crop. It's a great carbon sink. It's incredible for reducing erosion. It's amazing for forcing water into the water table. It's really a pretty incredible crop. And so culturally significant around the globe. And when you meet sugar industry mill producer folks from anywhere, it's your instant family anywhere. I was talking to a cane grower from Uganda, and we were talking about, grades of hardness, and it was really just the passion is so there. And he travels all over the world and works in all these different areas and just sharing different stories of sugarcane. So it's funny living here in Lafayette, Louisiana, where I am now, surrounded by sugarcane and the sugar industry. And it's been like, it fills my heart with joy to like drive around these like beautiful fields. And they're so beautiful here. They're really like, the investment and the maintenance is insane. So it's really, or I should say, it's really wild. So yeah, it's really beautiful. And so yeah, working at Mount Gay and getting to lead, be a private project leader there, and work on something for them was really amazing. And the team is incredible. I still talk to them, a lot of them, all the time. Um, and yeah, it changed me. The like gratitude I have for, this is a country that people work really hard, and it's challenging sometimes. Like, there's some real challenges that colonialism left behind, and I'm really grateful still when I go to the gas station here. It's like, oh my gosh, it wasn't $200. I buy like strawberries. I'm like, oh my God, strawberries. This is incredible. It's amazing. And I know like our country's facing some challenges right now. And I'm very aware of like, it's tough times. And also like, I'm simultaneously also really grateful for like how amazing some of what we have is, and also we should do better because we do have some good advantages. So like, let's be better.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely, I got a cappuccino the other day, and my husband was like, I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. This cappuccino is amazing. Like, so yeah, but the relationships, the personal connection, the genuine care. Like, if you don't text someone when you drove home late at night and they're like genuinely concerned about like you, the person first, um, not just like the worker unit who passes them on the street. Like it was really lovely. I
Mm.
cherish it.
Humankind, not human resources. I love it.
Right, right. And the general, intelligence is amazing because, it's one of the most educated countries in the world. University is free. And the social intelligence. If you look at literacy in Barbados, it's like 99.9. Do not Google the number for the US. It's very depressing. So everyone is so intelligent and so on it and so smart. I think of myself as like, I'm a bright person, and wow, like I learned a lot. I learned a lot about like some humility because it's the average person is just so intelligent. So yeah, it was an amazing place to live. It's so many layers. I don't miss the monkeys. I thought I'd miss the monkeys, but you know what? I have a banana tree in my backyard and it doesn't get destroyed all the time. So
Ah,
I
ah.
I finally learned. It was like I was always like a foreigner there because it's like I still liked the monkeys, and I knew that day would come. And yeah, finally, I'm like, you know what? Those monkeys were terrible. So
Oh man, still like the monkeys. I'm writing that down. That's going in the intro. Um,
I'd be like, oh, I saw the baby monkeys in the field, and they'd be like, no, no, we hate them. And I'd be like, no, they went through someone else's sugarcane field to eat our sugarcane. It's a good sign, guys. And they'd be like, they rip up our cane. They're terrible.
I feel that way about the squirrels that are destroying my garden right now.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. Yeah.
Um, so we're gonna come back to the fauna briefly, but I want to hit a little bit of your roots in philosophy. Specifically, we'll talk about aesthetics. Kant dealt with that. What makes a beautiful? We're gonna do sort of the Venn diagram of beautiful um, fields slash vineyards. What makes a beautiful cane field, and what makes a beautiful vineyard, and how is a beautiful cane field both similar to and different from a beautiful
Ooh,
vineyard?
I like this. I like this. Well, for me, it's like, in Barbados, we would literally, I remember driving through St. George Parish one day and pulling over to like take pictures of the cane field to like send to one of my coworkers, be like, look at this field I saw. Cause it's like when you see a good one, you're just like, oh, yeah, it's amazing. For me, I'm really interested in the health of the soil. Like, does it have, like, if you're seeing this really, just like in a vineyard, if you're seeing a really good mix of like rock and soil and like it looks organic and healthy, you want those stones because you're going to get really great drainage, which obviously is super important, for both, because sugarcane and grapes will soak up all the water that falls and dilute themselves. And so really great kind of mix of rocks in there will, it'll help to mineralize the soil. It'll help with drainage. It reduces some of the organic material because you don't want it to be too fertile, right? Because the other question is, are you going for yields or are you going for flavor? And this was a big topic for me in sugarcane, having my grape background where, because so much of, since essentially the 50s, you have these central factory systems where lots of cane growers, it's almost like the co-ops in wine, where they have the big factory and all the villagers bring their product and then it gets processed into more generic and more bulk expressions. So people would say there's no terroir in molasses. It's like, well, how would you even know? All you've ever drank is like box wine, like not the cool box wine we have today, but like the box wine you had 20 years ago. Like, how would you even know that Burgundy exists if all you've ever had is white Burgundy, in a box? So, like getting to actually like see it for myself. And then of course, like it's so funny, the second you get in the sugar industry, they're super concerned about consistency because they're like, oh, year to year, it's totally different. Producer to producer, like cane producer, plot to plot, their practices, the cane is totally different. The molasses it makes is totally different. Like, how could you ever make it taste the same if you're doing small batches, and it's just like funny to me, right? That like consumers are like, molasses has no terroir, and every sugarcane factory is like, it's totally different. So, for me, that was really exciting to kind of see. But yeah, so for me, it's just like, is it well cared for? And that doesn't mean it has to be like most perfectly manicured, but you can tell when like weeds are out competing, when sort of invasive stuff is starting to draw away and pull character away because it's consuming and overtaking. And I understand and respect that that kind of care takes resources, and every cane producing region has a different economic reality and a different political reality, and like not everyone can have these perfectly manicured cane fields. And unfortunately, much of the sugarcane industry is based on payment by weight. So people are just trying to grow as much as they can and put it in there, but it can end up in situations where there's so much weed, or, you know, we say matter other than grapes, mog. There's so much mock matter other than cane that when they go to press the cane, it can actually start to like taint the crystals, and crystals can even come out green if there's too much chlorophyll from too many weeds in the field, etc.
Oh,
And
that's
then in
so
some of these
funny.
communities, yeah, yeah. And so, like, you know, if you see something that's just well maintained, the vigor is great, the canes, when they're standing up straight, are lovely, but when they lodge, sometimes that means they're older heirloom varietals. So lodging means when they fall over. So like when you see an old vineyard and you see like the arms, like if you have like a double guillot system and the arms are all old and gnarly and almost touching the ground, it's kind of the same thing. And then if I see a field arrowing, so arrows are like, they look like miniature little white Christmas trees on the top of the sugar cane, and that's the seeding body of the sugar cane. And most of that has been bred out because it takes energy to grow that part of the cane. They don't want the cane pulling sugar out of its system to grow those. So those are usually older, more heirloom canes. And when you see a field that arrows and it's just like this beautiful waving white feathery wispy tops in the wind, it's just beautiful. And it used to be tradition in a lot of Caribbean countries, and particularly in Barbados, these arrow right around November and December, and you'd cut the tops off and use them as Christmas decorations. So, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's almost like describing the difference between walking by a beautifully manicured garden with like, very planted annual flowers versus walking through a intentionally preserved field of wildflowers.
Yeah.
Both are beautiful in their own ways, but you kind of pull for the wildflowers. There's a special beauty about that because it was allowed to be and appreciated. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's not these
Um,
like perfectly uniform soldiers. It's got character. Like if you see like a lot of bulk wine growing, they use these very large cane systems and they look, very, functional. But they just don't have the romance of like the low trained in Chablis or in Bordeaux.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Well, and I love what you were saying too about the manicuring, and like you hedged in one direction, which was like, yeah, obviously like there's some operations that just don't have the resources to dedicate to aesthetics when right we're talking about poundage and we need yields, so it all makes sense. It's a business. But what I thought of when you were talking about that is it's like, well, terroir is place, but it's also decision making, right? And the
Hmm.
decision to dedicate resources to a specific type of field management or vineyard management does, in its own small way, but in a sort of snowballing effect way, play into the type of terroir that we reference when we're talking about, North Shore of Martinique versus other parts of Martinique, right? Like it's sort of built in there at a more granular level of description, but still at an influential level of description
A
into
thousand
the
percent.
terroir.
1,000%. It's the sense of place, and that sense of place can be communicated in those outcomes and those effects, and the know-how of a place. I think in rum more than anything, you see that in Barbados they aren't making these funky rums. That's not their tradition, it's not their heritage. So making the expression they make is part of their terroir, it's part of their know-how. And I think that that is so important. And when we talk about terroir, I think it's really misunderstood in spirits. I hear it discussed. Oh my gosh, it's a bit of a bugbear for me. Really incorrectly a lot of the time. But like we talk about the level of focus, right? So like if you're a producer in the Yarra Valley, so you have like wine from Australia, and like that's a big, you overlay that map over the US, is a big country. We think of it as this little island. It's a huge country. And you have wine from Australia. So that's you could blind taste it and you can probably say, hey, the depth and detail of the purity of the fruit's incredibly high. The yeast selection, which is, a know-how choice, has like super high purity and super distinct cold esters. And, the flavor definition looks like this and this. This has a sense of Australia about it. In, California wine, you can really taste the hand of the winemaker. And in Australia, you can't. Like, it's not front and center. So, like, these are terroir elements, right, that tell you the sense of place that are not necessarily just dirt. And then you have so you have wine from Australia, and it has a sense of Australia about it, but like it doesn't speak too much of a place. The focus is really low. But then you want to go to like Yarra Valley, which is like part of, Victoria. So you have Victoria, then you have a little bit smaller Yarra Valley, and then say you have a single vineyard. Like you're going to have completely different levels of focus. And this is true in whiskey. You might, a lot of rye whiskey is not local grain unless you are in Canada. Good for you. Like a lot of US rye whiskey is imported grain, just like we import molasses. And then you distill it in a place, you ferment it in a place, and the temperature, the humidity, the daytime, nighttime temperature shift, the diurnal temperature shifts can affect that fermentation, the know-how, the ingredients, who services that region. This is something I learned a lot about in the Caribbean. It's like which suppliers are even going to source you. So that's going to determine certain style choices you make. And then, of course, as you age it, the terroir, and as you distill it, obviously, if it's even winter versus summer, your product, if you have that seasonality, your product's going to come out completely different. Whereas, in Barbados, it's like it's December, it's cold, it's hard for the fermentations. And I'm like, this is a different perspective than I'm used to. I'm like, it's 23 degrees out Fahrenheit. It's going to be hard, not 27 Celsius.
Right.
Yeah, all of those things absolutely affect character. So, maybe you have local grain, maybe you ferment it locally, maybe you distill it locally, maybe you age it locally, super high level of focus. But maybe you import your grain, maybe you import your yeast. You still have a level of focus of the fermentation, the distillation, and the aging. It's just a different level of focus.
That's right. I need to make good on a promise that I put specifically in the questions that I sent you, because this is a very natural transition to talk about a different type of terroir in a different place in a project that you're currently working on. But I said we're not leaving Barbados until we talk about cane dogs.
Yeah.
Because tell me about cane dogs.
Oh, I love our cane dogs. Yeah, so cane dogs are just like, any rural community that might have like neighborhood dogs running around. But they live in the cane fields. They help to deal with the cane rats, which are their own beast that you don't want to know about. And yeah, so they're just like this little cute part of the ecosystem there. They run around the cane fields, they pop their heads out. We used to have one I called Sasha. I'm sure everyone named it something different. She was like a small brown kind of dog who would hang around the molasses mill waiting for, someone to dribble a little something. And yeah, so each field kind of has their own cane dogs. You get to know them. They're around the neighborhood. And then there's like chosen cane dogs. Like we had one, and like all different people had different names for it. Names are very different in different cultures. So it was very natural for there to be like 7 names for this black dog that we had at the estate who was a cane dog, but he got a collar. So like spoken for now.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Midnight was one of my favorite names for that dog. And so, yeah, it's just they're around, they're everywhere. There's Wyndham's, which is a local coffee roaster in Barbados, doing incredible work. Like, huge part of my life there is like getting high quality coffee beans, right? I'm like a spoiled person from the US. I want my nice coffee. They make incredible coffee, and they roast a special roast for the cane dogs, and a percentage of it goes to organizations that support and fix and feed and heal hurt cane dogs. But yeah, they're just like a staple in the community, and they're real sweet. Yeah, I miss those sweetie pies for sure.
I loved hearing you talk about the cane dogs while we were judging recently in Virginia. And so 2 things I want to share with you. Number one, obviously, if a cane dogs calendar comes out, let me know, because I will be the first customer of the cane dogs calendar. Second, Cane Dawgs sounds like a geriatric motorcycle gang.
Yeah, we're the cane dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, big dog.
Yeah. And that should be, I mean, I can't do it for search engine optimization purposes. That should be the title of this episode. So the private title of this episode is Cane Dawgs with Maggie Campbell. And Cane Rats, on the other hand, sounds like the worst minor league baseball team in the worst division. That if you lose to the Cane Rats, not only do you have the shame of having lost to the worst team, but there's like sort of like they know they're the worst team, and they're just this insulting kind of like mean little name, and so you have to deal with that shame in addition to having just lost to the Cane Rats. So
the Cane Rats. I was talking to a friend last week, and they said, I saw a cane rat. It ran up a palm tree, and the palm tree was full of cane rats, and I just shut the door and didn't look back and told my husband to deal with it. It's just, it's intense. You think of a rat fed only on pure sugar cane, and you're just going to be like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, just hopped up on Mountain Dew, basically.
Right. And mainline in it, just biting right into it like a vampire. Yeah, it's intense.
Sounds horrifying.
Thank goodness for the cane dogs. They keep us safe.
Exactly. See, you've got both sides. You got the light and the dark, and I love the detail too of them all having, like, everyone having their different names. Like, it becomes more of like the almost like the cloud of names around the dog becomes almost like an idiom for its value.
Yeah.
Right. And its essence, kind of, which I love. So,
I love the tradition of aliases, where it's like, I was talking to Zan at Worthy Park a lot about this, about how folks have their aliases, and it's like, I knew one employee at Mount Gay for a long time as Humble Kid. Oh, it's Humble Kid, and then someone said Michael. I'm like, who's Michael? Or someone will be like, their alias is like George. Everyone calls them George, and then it's like, oh no, like that's my paperwork. It says Thomas. Oh yeah, that's me. It's like, okay. It's a very natural thing there, It just happens.
Yeah, I love it.